behind that we know of. He may tap in later, or we may have to. We may have to reschedule, but we don't know that for certain yet. Um, so that being said, what we want to do in this conversation, right? We know that um, Derek Chauvin is on trial for the murder of George Floyd, and currently he is actually. Uh, um, hold on one second. He's actually charged with. I'm going to give you all of the full list, which I have. He is charged currently with second and third degree murder and second degree manslaughter. So in this context, right, when we look at what's going on with America, when we look at what's going on in our nation, police brutality has been something that has been a problem for over 400 years. We know that policing originally started and began as a way to have and maintain slave catchers. In a lot of ways, it is now the modern. People have said that policing and to be a police officer is to, in many ways, be a modern slave catcher. So when we look at what's going on, what happened with George Floyd, I think it was one of the most horrific incidents that ever took place in American history. For those of you that maybe have forgotten, let me recap the events um, of that tragic day, just to provide context. After a store clerk had alleged that George had passed a counterfeit $20 bill in Minneapolis, Derek Chauvin was one of four police officers who arrived on the scene, and he knelt on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. After his death, protests against police brutality, particularly against Black Americans, quickly spread across the United States and internationally. George Floyd was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He was a native of Houston, Texas. He played both football and basketball. He was listed at a height of 6'6", but at the time of his death, he was listed to be 6'4". And I bring his height up for a reason. So often in America, Black men are seen as threatening, as dangerous, as violent. But the thing that I have the greatest problem with is there are so many detractors of George Floyd. There are people that said that he was high on drugs, fentanyl, things like that, that he was out of his mind. But what I submit to you is that no matter what he did, no matter what he was under the influence of or not under the influence of, um, the fact of the matter is that for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, his oxygen was deprived from him. There's nothing that any man can do to justify that type of slow and painful death. The 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 point of the matter is um, when you look at how policing is handled in America, the only thing that we need to realize is that this is still representative of a system that has never had us in mind. And the reason that, how can I put it? The reason there will continue to be civil unrest is because we as a people have not yet decided for some reason that enough is truly enough. So the question that I had that I asked to all of my moderators to start the conversation is how do we begin to tackle truly changing the culture of policing in America? And Daphne, I'll start with you if you're ready, or Delano if you're ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is, first of all, let me just say, first of all, thank you for opening the space to have this conversation. I think it's extremely important, and particularly with the climate even though the family received a settlement from the city, they're still unsettled with the overarching issue of policing, or the over policing that we continue to see even after George Floyd's horizontal lynching. So there's so many things, and I am the way that I would describe this. First of all, you made a statement, and I think we have to just go back in the past and pull some images from the past. There is a book that was that captured not moving pictures but still pictures, called Without Sanctuary. One of the most graphic books that outline this history of lynching of our people. And while George Floyd's death was extremely troubling, as we look and saw someone life just snuff away from them, we see the history, and it's important to see that this is an established behavior that is rooted within the culture. If we're looking at the problem, we have to assess it properly. So it is not only systemic, but it is a part of routines, established routines. And a routine and a habit is something that you automatically do without thinking. And I'm reminiscent of that famous imagery, that video that's etched in all of our minds, where the officer, I don't even want to call his name, just basically looked into the camera as if he was just doing his job. So I think as we really allow this to sink in, and as we care for our sons and our daughters, you know, my mentor, Dr. George Fraser, said, we don't move when we see the light. We don't move to action when we see the light. We move when we feel the heat of that light. And I think the last 2 years, the last 48 months, has been a time when we feel that heat. So I think that is extremely important for us to actually reconsider our stance. And more importantly, what are we committing ourselves to do in moving forward as a people? Back to you, Dr. Hooley.
So we have, ladies and gentlemen, Felonious. Felonious, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Happy to have you here with us. So for those of you who do not know, this is the brother of George Floyd, and it is an honor. We are highly honored and blessed to have you here with us, my brother. If you would, I want to go ahead and have you, if you don't mind, just give us just a little bit of an introduction about yourself and tell us a little bit about, in the news we hear so much of one side of the story, but if you would tell us just a little bit about not only who you were, but who your brother was, if you don't mind.
Um, he was a great person to us. He was somebody that we can count on through thick and thin to help us out with not only our schoolwork, just stuff like taking us to different parks and, helping kids. He was just that type of person where people needed haircuts in the community. He started cutting people hair, and he was just one of a kind. I can honestly tell you, if he was a card, he'd be the ace of spades. He helped so many different people. He always told you can do this if you really wanted to. Don't ever tell yourself that you can't do things. He always was like one of those people that just blessed a lot of people in the neighborhood and showed people the way. Yes, sir.
I definitely understand that. I think it's very important, to have a good role model. And the next question I wanted to personally ask is, has Derek Chauvin or any involved police officer in that day, have they apologized to you or to the family, or provided any remorse of any kind?
Well, that's something that I don't know. Um, if they did, if you haven't seen it, I haven't seen it, so I don't know. Hopefully, after the situation that they're in, they probably do something like that. But until then, I don't know.
Okay. And then the last thing, what was your reaction to that, the just excuse me, the Justice and Policing Act? And what is your, just kind of, if you would, you just said it. If I ain't seen it, you ain't seen it. So what is your overall stance right now on the overall culture of policing in this country as it stands today?
I honestly, I just think that because I want to work alongside police officers and elected officials now because of what's going on. I just think that the George Floyd Policing Act that we're trying to implement, it should make those officers be able to have their dash on at all time, their cameras, period. Also, the no chokehold that we trying to create for Breonna Taylor, not Breonna Taylor, but George Floyd and Eric Garner because they passed away from chokehold military tactics. And also the Breonna Taylor no knock warrant law. All of this stuff is all entitled into one law. And we're all here to try to create this because our next generations, we need to be able to have our kids to grow up and not have to worry about a lot of different things because people are dying every day in this nation. This is not local. This is bigger than my brother. You have to think about all around the world. I did a call with United Nations, and you can think about people don't think about London, Africa, all these different places. They all have some form of racism and stuff that's going on with policing and stuff like that. I was just listening to a lady, and she stated that her brother was killed and then they told them that the property is theirs, it's no longer their property. And when they finally gave the body back to the people, the heart was gone, the brain was not there, and the body was decomposed.
Jesus.
It's hmm
Jesus.
yes, sir.
And Mr. Floyd, one of the things that you brought up, you said you're trying to work with law enforcement now. Now, I want to ask you this. You know, I am a professional speaker. I've been a speaker since I was 8 years old, and I've traveled the United States delivering Dr. King's material. And I remember, I've been to the mountaintop speech that he gave. He talked about how they went before the fire hoses, and he said, we when we were in Birmingham, Alabama, in that majestic struggle there, Dr. King said they would move out of the 16th Street Baptist Church day after day by the hundreds. They would move out, and Bull Connor would tell them to send the dogs forth, and they did come, but we just went before the dogs, singing, "Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around." And when they turned the fire hoses on, we would sing over my head, "I see freedom in the air." What kind of strength does that require? Because the obvious reaction to something like that would occur would be anger, it would be animosity, it would be distrust. How did you grapple with that kind of emotion? Because there's nothing more difficult than losing a sibling, than losing a parent. How in the world did you grapple with that? If you don't mind sharing it with us, bro.
Well, me, I come from the projects. I come up out of the CUNY homes in Third Ward. So everything that I've been to, it don't matter like what I'm going through now. I just got a hole in my heart that can be patched. I watched my brother have his soul taken out his body by an officer who would not get off his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, which is the estimated time, because they really don't know. It's sad that I would have to go through this, but we have a big family, and my family, we lean on each other all the time, and we talk, and I tell them all the time, we'll keep fighting, and we're gonna fight to the end because we want justice and we want a conviction because I never want this to happen to anybody else's family because especially by somebody whose job they sworn to protect us. And anytime I see a police officer, I should never be in fear. And I wouldn't want any one of you individuals to have fear because you have good police officers, you have bad police officers. You shouldn't have to sort them out. That's the biggest thing.
Yes, sir. And at that point, and that was all the questions I want to ask for now. I'm going to turn it over to my moderators, starting with Delano. Delano, Dr. Watson, and Mashari, you guys take it away.
Thank
So
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think Ashari had a question.
I did along the lines of what you were saying. You are working for, with the police and, politicians to try to get this law passed. So are you working are you looking for something nationally? Are you starting statewide? And what can we do to help?
I want this to be national because I wasn't in Minnesota. I live in Texas. So this happened in Minnesota. So if it can happen in Minnesota, it can happen anywhere across America. And this has been happening all across America for years. Generations, ancestors, we all went through all types of things. Me having the opportunity to go to different places, like when we went for the funeral, we had like three different funerals. We were in North Carolina. I was inside of a hotel and I kept seeing people pass by back and forth, back and forth. And I asked them, "Hey, how are you?" And they just stopped and they were excited to speak with me about what was going on and how they said my brother had changed the world. And I told them, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna fight because you all are still here." And they let me know you all been fighting because they could have gave up a long time ago because these people were 65 and 70 years of age. They went through it, and I understand what they went through. And that's one of the biggest things why I push issues now because like I told you before, I don't want nobody else to go through what's going on. So I'm gonna try my best to be able to work with elected officials or just federal officials, anybody that's willing to listen, because I'm trying to change anything I can because these laws have been here too long and they don't need to be here anymore because the laws, it shouldn't be about white America and black America. It shouldn't be divided. It should be one for all because we're stronger in numbers.
Amen. And then very quickly, Delano, before you go, I just want to encourage everyone, if you can, guys in the audience and even us on stage, if you would take the time to ping people into this room. This is a conversation that everyone should be privy to. I think that's something that we really, really need to understand. To have an opportunity to speak uh, with someone so connected to this incident, it doesn't get any better than that. Delano.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Julio. This is Delano speaking. Um, I almost want to call you Reverend Felonious because you speak with such calm for someone who's gone through what you've gone through. And I'm just flawed with the amount of strength that I hear in your voice. Now, maybe you're so busy with the activity of finding and achieving justice, or it is in fact. But I definitely want to just thank you for this outward show of calm, cool, and collectedness. I'm just encouraged by that. And with that said, historically, after events such as these atrocities, these things that happen to upset the culture, we have to sit and anxiously await the verdict. We've seen how verdicts are anticipated and responded to. And in all the calm and cool and collectedness, are you and your family, how are you preparing for, in the event that the verdict is not favorable?
You know, uh, I always tell my family the same thing. We're gonna always speak it into existence. I tell them that we anything that we have going on, we're gonna speak it into existence. Until then, I'm not gonna say anything about it because I feel that the video is enough to convict him. I know Eric Garner and them, they had videos. A lot of people had videos across the world, but there's something about this video. It was like a motion cinema picture. Everybody watched it. Everybody seeing this cop. He had a smirk on his face with his knee on my brother's neck, and he was steady trying to get position himself better while he had his knee on my brother's neck until my brother passed. If you can't get justice for something like that in America, what can you get justice for? So that's one of the biggest things that we're going off of when we view what's going on in America. So until the end, it's not going to be about us. It's going to be about how the world reacts to it. Because right now, we're just in a box and we're still thinking about this emotional roller coaster that we have to go through.
Yeah, this is Delano speaking again. Philonis, you just brought up something that's extremely important, and that is in the aftermath, that you're stable, and also the fact that I don't think we've ever had such an indelible mark, a stinging mark of what injustice looks like in the face of that officer. And I'm like you. We don't need any other evidence because this is the first time we've had it captured in this type of HD, high definition, to see the systemic racism in high definition and such. So brother, I'm holding faith with you, and I just believe that the justice system will do the right thing at this point in time. So I'll pass it over back to Dr. Julio. This is Delano.
This is Dr. Julio again. Um, Polonius, I have to ask. I'm because you, as Delano said, you speak as if you are a man of faith. What advice would you give to the people whose initial reaction, and I don't know what your initial reaction was, and if you can share that, I would love it. But love for you to do that. But how do you maintain this sense of peace? And what would be your advice to those of us who maybe reacted in the way that even I did when I saw this? Because my initial reaction was one of sheer anger and sheer disdain and distrust, um, for not just the police officers in Minneapolis, but across the country. What would your advice be? I remember even when Martin Luther King Jr.'s home was bombed and people wanted to go basically go to war against the white man, if you will. Dr. King said, "Don't do that." How is that your same sentiment, or what is it? Rather?
You just said something about Dr. King. If you're going to honor Dr. King, you can't go to war with him because he wouldn't want that. So when you think about what Dr. King said he had a dream that all men and women, boys and girls, will be able to join hands all around the world together. And when my brother passed, I can say, honestly, say we did that. People from all around the world, just nations, period, they marched and protested for George Floyd because they knew what they seen was wrong. You can't take that back. There's no way to say it was an accident. There's no way to say that the person doesn't deserve time in prison. Right now, what I would want people to do is just get ready to march and go out again because even after this conviction, we still have people we have to march for. We have our ancestors. Well, not only that, we have the same thing that happened with Breonna Taylor. They gave her a lump sum of money, but at the same time, she didn't get justice for it. I guess when you give people a lump sum of money, that's justice. But I really can't say that's not justice at all. People want to see people convicted for the crimes that they did, because murder isn't murder until somebody is charged for it and convicted.
Amen. Amen, my brother. I want to turn it over to either Dr. Watson or Lydia Cotton if you guys have a question.
Absolutely. Felonious, thank you so much for being with us today. You said something very powerful a little earlier on. You mentioned that your brother changed the world. And I think we all can attest to that, everyone in this room, by watching the video and just how dramatic and blatant it was to our eyes to see. And Gianna actually mentioned that in one of her videos. You know, she mentioned my dad changed the world. How is Gianna and how is this impacting her right now?
But Gianna, she's still a child, so it's like she know what's going on, but she really don't know what's going on. It's like it's different as an adult when somebody passed away and you there, you know what's going on. It's difficult to probably like for her probably to process it, but give her a few years, I think that she would know everything that's going on because it's impossible not to know because it's everywhere. It's on YouTube, it's on the news, people talking about it. Every time you see a newspaper, you can pull it out on your phone. It's just a tragedy that nobody will ever be able to overcome, especially people of color, because it's happening to people of color around the world. So we have to stick together because we have to do it for Gianna. We have to do it for George Floyd. We have to do it for Ahmaud Arbery. We have to do it for Sandra Bland. We have to do it for everybody.
Amen. Amen to that. I think that's one of the things that we forget. You know, these individuals, George, Brianna, Ahmaud, Trayvon, and I could go on and on. These are isolated incidents that to me demonstrate a larger problem. And so I want to take the title or take the conversation and turn it just slightly different, Felonious. When you look at this, um, how big of a role in your mind do and can politicians play in politicizing these horrendous acts of violence, and how what can they do and what do we need to make them do, um, in your opinion, to correct these injustices? Because at the end of the day, this is beyond this is not only a moral issue, it is a law issue. There were policies put in place that allowed Derek Chauvin to even engage in some of the actions that he took. And if you're able to speak to that, I know you mentioned you wanted to work with law enforcement on this. We know that we have the Justice in Policing Act now, but what else do you believe can be done or should be done?
Yeah, that's one of the things. I went and like you just said, I went and spoke at the Capitol, and we were speaking about this. So they held it up, but soon as President Biden he was elected, we went in there again, and the Senate it was passed. Oh, but now it has to be passed again. So my biggest concern is, do you really want to change the world? That's the problem. We have to get other people that's knowledgeable of what's going on, especially in the African American community, because most of the things that's happening is in the African American communities. And you thinking about when you're looking at TV now, you see some stuff happening to Asians in Atlanta, and it's to me it's like a war out there, and people are just one sided right now. So I'm gonna try my best to be able to go different places. I'm gonna work and see what I can do to get accomplished. But at the same time, I'm just a average Joe like you all, just been put on a platform to go out and do different things in life. I'm just doing what God has put on me to do. That's all I can do. My brother was killed. I didn't ask for this. I was a truck driver. So everything that I'm doing now, I'm just following whatever the Lord tells me to do. And right now, I feel this is my place. I need to be able to help change different policies for people can live and not live in.
I agree with
Absolutely.
you.
Amen.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Daphne, do you have a question if you're here with us? And if not, we may want to do Felonious. I don't know how much time you have, but I know that we probably would have some audience members who may have a few questions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the hand raising feature off for now, and I'm going to turn it back on in a minute. If you're able to take a couple questions,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. I seen because this really like my first time being at the top of the box, but I'm looking and I seen like two hands or something like that. So if those people, if you wanted them to ask a question, they could. I was looking at it, but I don't know.
yes, sir. So basically, so how I wanted to. How you doing, Laban? How I usually structure my conversations is quite like that, a conversation. And there's a lot of people that were waiting to meet you. I was waiting to meet you, and of course, when we have these talks, a lot of people are going to have a lot to say. I want to keep it respectful, though. However, um, so now y'all know, the way I run my rooms, but we gotta exercise, good judgment here. So I'm gonna turn the hand raising feature on.
And I'm going to add to that, Dr. Julio, if you don't
Yes.
mind. Since Felonious is new, I just want to let him know that if you see mics flashing, that's just people kind of clapping or in agreement with you, just to let you know that. So we're going to allow people to come up. However, again, please be respectful, and we're going to let you come up a few at a time.
Oh, and
I do have. I have.
one more thing. Anybody that was willing to ask questions, follow me.